serious one who cares like way too much what you think. I'm Michelle Welch.
And I'm the not so serious one. Don't really give a damn what you think. Your host, Roger Welch.
And we have with us tonight Laura Pace, who knows everything.
No.
So she cares not at all what you think because she'll tell you what to think. No, I'm kidding. But she actually is joining us tonight. Thank you for being here, Laura.
Yes, thank you for having me.
We also have Loki
Loki.
on the set again tonight, which is going to be interesting. He likes a straw.
Well, I got him a straw because he's always trying to take mine out of the drink, so I just grabbed an extra for him.
Okay. Yeah. Well, he
See?
can have everything
He's entertaining.
you have.
It's entertaining for him.
All right, so tonight, you guys, we picked kind of an interesting, a little bit different subject. We called it Psychics and Serial Killers. So we're probably going to just dive right in talking about that. We've talked about it some in our classes.
Yes.
In Intuitive Insights, that's on Thursday nights at SoulTopia. What's he eating? A straw?
The straw.
We've talked about it some in class. And one of the things that some people will ask me is, are psychics really used in cases? And when I'm talking about cases, I'm talking about criminal cases primarily. They might be used in some other cases, like civil cases, maybe to find out if somebody's cheating on somebody or something like that. I think it'd be smarter just to hire a private detective for that. But to be honest, don't you?
Yeah.
Probably.
He'd probably just find that out another way. But, so, are they used and who uses them? There was a program, and Laura's going to talk about it a little bit, I believe.
Yeah.
There's a program that, and we'll get into the different ways they're used, but this one's going to be specifically about remote viewing that our government used that involves psychics. And the thing with remote viewing that they will tell you is that is not just psychics, that anyone can learn to remote view with enough practice. And with that caveat, I think everybody, if the government has said that, and a lot of studies have shown that, then I think you could really take that and translate that into every single case to say, then why wouldn't it be used more if everybody could learn remote viewing?
Right.
Because I think it's hard as heck.
It is very hard. It's one of the hardest things, for
Yeah.
sure.
So when we practice it in class, well, first of all, just remote viewing is when you, are you going to talk about that? Or do you want me to talk
Remote viewing about the government?
about what it is?
Oh, sure. Remote viewing is a form of, would it be clairvoyance? A form of
I think it's clairvoyance.
Clairvoyance.
It could be any of the clairs, probably.
where you can see things that you are not in front of you. So you can see shapes, you can see signs, you can feel things. But remote viewing is seeing a place that you are not in. So it would be to use your
Clairvoyance.
clairvoyance to actually help pinpoint something that's not there in front of you. And it's very, very hard to do. Just in class the other night, we were talking about, Michelle mentioned that a lot of people try and see specific objects, but really what is good to do is just try and see maybe shapes, things that might relate to something. So not to be very specific in remote viewing, but it is very hard to do. And I'll tell you a little bit about who coined the term remote viewing and how it was used in the government.
One of the reasons why it's so, it's not like you're hedging your bets, but when you actually get information, psychic information, for lack of a better word, for a lot of us, it doesn't come in neat paragraph forms that are complete sentences. It comes as a barrage of information, a vision of things you see, words that may pop into your head, or words you may see, sounds you may hear, glimpses of something, and it may come really, really quickly. It comes different ways for different people. But with remote viewing, one of the biggest things that you're told to do when you're training to remote view is to write down every impression you get instead of trying to go to, it's a sailboat or it's Roger. You may see one little detail, one tiny detail, like I might see, the rim of his cap and the curve of his cap, and that's all that I see, and that's all that I pick up on, but that could be useful to someone.
So I guess the biggest thing about this is the interpretation or how the person interprets what they see, right?
Well, how someone interprets it.
Or how someone.
How someone, because you're not really called to interpret it. That's where you get in trouble, is if you're interpreting what you see.
Mm-hmm.
As the remote viewer, you should just explain or draw what you're seeing. Once you start trying to interpret it, that may be where you mess up.
Mm-hmm.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. So that's that perception thing.
Yeah.
Right. So all of a sudden you think, oh, I see. I always use this a sailboat analogy. So I see a sailboat. Well, it might be one of those big, tall, what are those flag sail-looking things that you put out in front of stores?
Yeah.
And it may have that shape
Maybe that.
of maybe a sail, but it may be something completely different. Okay.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about the remote viewing and how the program that we used to have.
Right. So in the 70s, the United States government found out that Russians were doing studies in, and I want to make sure I say it correctly, but they were investigating psychotronics. And so the United States, in the middle of course, the Cold War, did not want to be left out. So they worked with an organization based in Menlo Park, California called SRI. It stands for the Stanford Research Institute. And they do research for government, for companies, for foundations. And there was two gentlemen, Russell Targ and Harold Puthoff. They were parapsychology researchers. And what they started to do was they actually coined the term remote viewing. So what they started to do was use subjects to test their remote viewing capabilities. And this was for the government. So this was a $20 million project that was funded. And you might have heard of it after 1995. They shut down the study in, I believe, 1990, but in 1995, the records were declassified. And it was come to known as the Stargate. So have you guys ever heard of Stargate?
Well, I have, just because of
Yeah.
Yeah.
So their findings were kind of inconclusive, and the government eventually abandoned the project. The CIA took over the project after a while because of their methodology and the way that they actually tested and confirmed their data. So it is no longer happening. SRI is still there, but the program itself no longer exists. And what's funny is a psychic from that study actually helped locate a Soviet plane, I believe, that had been shot down or that was missing. And they did that for President Carter. And President Carter himself was actually shocked and said that I have his quote, but he said that he actually couldn't explain how that person came up with the specific longitude and latitude coordinates to help find this plane. So there was a lot of research done in how the government could utilize remote viewing and clairvoyance for government and public affairs. So that was pretty interesting.
I remember one story. There was one main guy that was really good at it, and I can't remember his name.
Oh, Uri Geller.
And I think it was him who came up with, he saw for,
Uri.
I don't remember which country, was it Russia or China? He saw a huge submarine, and he described the length of it, and everyone was just laughing and saying, yeah, right, whatever. There's never been a submarine that big, and there couldn't be. It's not feasible. And then so much time went by, and sure enough, they had that submarine.
Yeah.
So he had described that through remote viewing.
Yeah. So it's really cool. And I remember there was a movie in the 90s, I think it was called Stargate, or was it a TV show?
There was both.
you-
Stargate. Yeah.
yeah.
It was a movie and they changed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it has anything to do with it. I never watched it, but it kind of brought that up when I was doing this research.
Was it the Drew Barrymore movie Firestarter? Wasn't that where they took, like, she had kinetics, not something other, but they had like a lot of different people, especially kids with special abilities, where the government was taking them to basically to a lab and studying them.
Oh wow!
I think that's like Marvel Comics.
No,
it's not. Have you never seen the movie?
Maybe. I mean, I think there's a lot of shows where they do that.
Yeah.
Aren't there? I mean, good point.
Who knows what
But
the
I think
government's
there's
doing?
there's a lot where they take the kids and they do that work with them. Anything else on that? On the government?
No, it just they were looking for a military application of psychic phenomenon, and I think that's it's interesting because it gives it credit. Certainly it gives remote viewing, it gives psychic abilities, it gives it credit, and I'm not sure anyone would stand behind it and say, yes, this worked. So I don't know if anyone was really willing to stake their reputation on it, or why specifically the program folded. But you can imagine a lot of people wouldn't want to put their names on the line.
Yeah.
For that.
Although, if I had my phone, if you look up the definition of psychic and faith, I always tell people they're so close. It's just so interesting. Everybody's so afraid of psychics, but we'll talk about faith. So then I started looking into state and local police. So the government's not necessarily, that is federal, but I didn't really look into how necessarily. I think, Laura, we'll talk about how the FBI uses it. Yeah. But state and local police officers, how often do they really use psychics for things such as telepathy, which is where you're communicating to someone else, post-cognition, which is you're seeing things after they happen as opposed to pre, psychometry, which is where we have an object and we feel the energy of that object, and we practice this a lot in class. It's also called clairtangency. Dowsing, where you can douse, you can use copper rods, or you can use pendulums. I don't know if we see pendulums for dowsing.
Boy, that's a nice pendulum.
You made that for me. It's actually a
Very
bracelet.
nice.
I wear it as an ankle bracelet because it's a little bit big. So when you have those classes, they're really good. I really covet your pendulum. That's like the best pendulum ever. Clairvoyance, like we've already talked about, which is clear viewing, and then remote viewing, which we touched on, and then mediumship. They'll also have people who will maybe try and communicate with those who have passed on to say, hey, what happened to you? And so those things, to me, I don't know why they're any more unusual than anything else, but other people aren't going to necessarily, psychic and faith can't always be proven. And so how much does the state and local police actually use it? My research is on my phone, which is over with Erica, but basically what I remember is that when they did a study of 50 of the largest cities, most of the cities say they don't go to a psychic. This is what their official statement was, that they don't go to a psychic, but they don't treat that information any differently than they would be any other piece of information.
Right.
Okay. 7 of those said that they would pay a little bit more attention to it. None of them seem to just out and out reject it. What I can say is that it's really because there's been a lot of people who've probably given credible psychics who really get information, truly do get some information, because of all the phony calls, maybe they're not phony.
Well, it's anything like that. There's tons of calls. You see it all the time. And they have to they're tracking down these calls because they saw the guy that looked like the guy seen by the neighbor, at the 7-Eleven. It ends up being, a rabbit hole they get chased down, and so it ends up spending a lot of their time and resources.
It does. But if and of course, the more the desperate they become in a case, the more they might be to listen. But most investigators, it would really be through the investigator that you might form a relationship as a psychic, as opposed to just calling in cold and saying, hey, I've got information, because then I don't know if they're duty bound to follow it, but what if they didn't follow it and it ended up being right? So they're chasing down that lead. And so you have all these psychics calling in. And there was one case I remember reading about, and I wish I could quote it, where they had like 50,000 phone calls. 50,000 phone calls that were kind of and 5,000 came from psychics.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they're weeding throughout 5,000 psychics. And I can tell you right now, do I believe that with work, those psychics could do that? I do believe that. Do I believe that 5,000 right now on the face of the earth know how to work a case properly and to properly handle it? I'm just going to say no. I discourage any of my students from ever bogging down a police station with a phone call.
Yeah, because we've had people, say that, and we've actually had some contact with some of the police courthouse type people, contact some people here even, and ask questions, and it takes a lot. I mean, it's not just throw some information at them though.
Most of the people who I have found, and I know there's that show, the Dubois, the mediumship lady, is that the actress or the, anyway, she was on Housewives. They always have a guest psychic on Housewives, and so she was on Beverly Hills Housewives, and she got really wasted on there, and they really made fun of her. But it was what that show Mediumship was based on, or the Medium.
Oh, Medium with Patricia Arquette.
Yeah. And so what I thought out of that my whole takeaway from that is don't be on a TV show and get completely wasted when you're trying to show yourself to be credible. Number one, that's probably not a great idea. Yeah. And two, I think I lost my train of thought. What were you saying? It was, they do have those go-to people, but here's the thing. Most of the people that they're going to contact, correct me if I'm wrong, police officers, but this is what I've been told, the investigators, if they know who they want to contact, they do. They'll contact them. And those people will probably never talk about it. It's not something they'll put on their bio and list on their bio as that this is something that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Psychic detective.
The credible ones probably won't have that on their resume, even though they might want to.
That TV show too.
Okay.
Is it?
Psychic detective.
It would make a good TV show.
Yeah. Okay, so those are the different ways that you can do it. And so the stats really are not real strong on police departments saying publicly, even when you look at Australia, they came out with a statement saying they don't consult with psychics, but so it's not real strong saying that they depend on them. I believe probably you do what you can when you're getting to a point of desperation in a case. A lot of times it will be the parents of someone who's missing that will say, I got this phone call from a psychic, which I think is a whole nother level of ethical ickiness, unless you really know something, to contact a family and cold call a family and say, I know where your child is. That's just pretty.
Well, and it can be very upsetting to them also, because you get their hopes and and everything going, the emotions going, and all of a sudden you can't produce. I mean, nothing's there. It didn't lead to anything, but it wasted a lot of time.
Right. So before we move on, do you want to talk about some prominent cases? Do you want to do a giveaway? Have you figured it out, what we're doing tonight?
Oh, I know what we're giving away.
Okay, what are we giving away?
They get a choice of one of the skulls right there.
Ooh, nice.
So we have a tiger's eye.
So you got to keep watching. We're going to give away one of the either tiger's eye or the red goldstone.
Very nice.
Very, very pretty. Oh, and your nails look good for Vanna White and that.
Yeah.
Look really good.
I just got them done.
So what did they have to do?
I don't know.
I don't think did anybody ever even win last week?
I don't think anybody even answered last week.
Nobody
I went back and
answered
looked.
last week.
Y'all forgot to answer.
Y'all did
last
not
week's.
answer. You did not win a pet charm.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So what was the program called after it was shut down, but what was the name that it was given when the government studied remote viewing?
Okay.
Okay, that's a good
question.
One. That's
First
a good
one
question.
to chime in.
Yeah, let's see who's paying attention.
Better be paying attention.
On which platforms?
Facebook.
Just on Facebook.
Just on Facebook tonight.
You guys, so here's the deal with YouTube. We're going to start trying to upload that later. I had a conversation today with some people. So our YouTube numbers are kind of in the tanker because we haven't been working on it that much. We're really trying to get to you guys to listen on all the podcast platforms. We're on iTunes. We're on all of, you can find us easily on podcasts. Or on Facebook if you're on there, on our SoulTopia page. We always share it. It's always in our email. But we're going to try and start sharing the YouTube link so that'll go back up. Who got it?
Leslie got it.
Leslie, you win every time. That's because you listen every time. And you know what? I'm glad for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was close.
It was close.
Yeah, it was close. They were all clicking in there fast. Monica Sue.
But we called it, right? We already got
Trevino.
So Leslie, which one you want? Do you want the tiger's eye or the red goldstone?
Vanna Whitehead again.
Vanna Whitehead. Whoop whoop.
Oh, look at that blue lace agate ring.
Yes, that's from SoulTopia.
Oh, man, I'm not kidding. That's pretty. I'm coveting that. All right. So did she decide which one she wants?
Not yet. Give her a second.
So we want to talk about maybe some prominent cases?
Yeah.
All right.
So as you mentioned earlier, in doing research for this podcast to figure out where psychics had been used in serial killer cases, it's pretty tough because police departments, government agencies, a lot of places don't admit to using psychics or to proactively seeking psychics' help. But in the 1970s and 80s, there was a pretty prominent psychic that kind of made a living off of this. Her name was Dorothy Allison. She passed away in 1999. But in 1978, she was brought in to help find a missing 19-year-old boy. And she didn't locate him, but what she did tell police was the date that they would find him. And they found him on that date. So that was pretty interesting for the John Wayne Gacy case. In the 1970s for Son of Sam, she also was called in and predicted that they would find him through a routine traffic violation or a parking ticket. And that's exactly how they caught Son of Sam, was a parking ticket. So that's pretty interesting. In the 70s, I believe that's when Patty Hearst, and this isn't a serial killer, but it's interesting. I think it was in the 70s when Patty Hearst was kidnapped. I don't know what year that was. But William Randolph Hearst hired Dorothy Allison to come in and help them find Patty Hearst. And she was successful in identifying that she was in Pennsylvania and New York and that she would be caught robbing a bank. That she would rob a bank. And she did, in fact, rob a bank in California, in San Francisco. But she failed, too. She had some really good wins, but she failed, too. Like in the Atlanta child murders in the 1970s, she gave them a list of 42 names, and none of them included the name of the individual who was ultimately captured for the murders of the children in Atlanta in the 1970s. There's a great podcast on the Atlanta child murders called Monster, I think it is. You guys should listen to that.
And it's excellent. On Mastermind season 2.
Yes, it is on Mastermind
season 2.
I haven't watched
Mastermind.
Mindhunter.
So
Mindhunter.
Mastermind's another show.
Very good, very good. Yeah. So she had a failure there, but in 1989, before Ted Bundy was executed, he gave authorities information on where a woman who he murdered, her name was Nancy Dixon, and he said that she was buried in Utah, in this place in Utah, but he wasn't specific. So the sheriff, Kerry Ecker, I think his name was, at the time, he had received information from 2 different psychics across the country, and they were pinpointing the exact same place. I think it was called Panorama Point or something like that. And so he decided, I've got nothing to lose at this point. I'm going to use the psychics to help find this poor woman's body. And they never found her, but it was interesting that 2 psychics who had nothing to do with each other, zoned in on one specific area in Utah.
Because one of the things they'll do is they will hand you a map of an area and have you circle. I won't go into specifics, but I've actually been handed, this is by not someone in the police department. I've been handed it was a Google map and zoomed out and asked to zoom in to where, and I wasn't in this country, by the way, where I thought someone would be found. And a lot of people told this person that the person they were looking for was not alive. Do you remember this? And I told them they were, and he was indeed found alive. But they will have you zone in. Now you can do this Google map and really zone in and say, this is where I think it is, even though you're not familiar with anything maybe about that country.
Right. One of the interesting things I read too was this guy, his name is Troy Griffin. Have you ever heard of him? I had never heard of him until
But I read that today. Yeah, I read it today.
So
Something about him.
Yeah, he's a self-proclaimed psychic detective, and he has worked in the United States. He's worked all across the globe, and his clients stick by him because he has actually, helped some clients before. But he's been accused of what they call hot reads, and I had never heard of this. So back in the 70s and the 80s, using psychics for serial killers was very different, or kidnappings or missing persons or whatever. But now we have the internet. And so he's been accused of looking at Facebook and gathering as much information as he can before he actually talks to someone.
Okay, so I don't even do that if a client's coming in.
Yeah.
I won't ever look. I don't even think you should look them up.
Yeah.
I would never remember it anyway, so.
Why would you?
Right.
Yeah. So that's really. Yeah. That's.
So it's interesting, and what he does is he looks at the database of missing persons and kind of scrolls through the pictures to see if there's anybody that he connects with, and he says he can see it in their eyes. So I'm not sure, you know, he makes a living off of it, but he also says that he doesn't charge for his services when he's helping government agencies help find people. But you can book an appointment with him online, which I thought was very interesting.
I bet you
So-
he gets paid a premium, though.
Yeah.
Especially since he gets to throw that little tagline, I work with the government.
Right.
Does he
Psychic
put that on? He
detective.
puts it on. That's what he calls himself.
Yeah, he's a
Interesting.
self-proclaimed psychic detective. But his clients have been very, very adamant that he's been accurate. He helped find a 42-year-old woman who went missing. I think it was in, I want to say Tennessee. I can't remember, but he found her through looking at her friends on Facebook, and said it's these 3 people that are involved.
I mean, I could see, you know, you're giving pictures and saying which of these, but if you're basically doing investigative work, that's a little, you're kind of combining the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of cool how it's really changed the nature of using psychics to solve true crimes.
Right. It's very interesting.
Thank you.
Okay. How are we on time? Okay.
Good.
How much do we have left?
15 minutes.
Okay. Do we want to do 15 minutes readings, or do we want to, are there any questions from anybody?
We've got
Any
just
comments?
a few people sharing some things. Carl Seven has said that due to the series in Russia convinced America that it can be useful for investigation in aerial cases.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody shared a government document.
Oh, cool.
Allie, from the Department of the Army, is one of the documents in the car.
That may be what they released.
Oh, yeah, the Stargate, the papers associated with that program.
Yeah.
I can tell you Jimmy
Analysis
Carter's
and
quote.
assessment of gateway process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So GQ magazine is talking to Jim Carter, and they said that must have been surreal for you. You're the president of the United States, and you're getting intelligence information from a woman in trance in California. Because he said a woman had contacted him in California, claimed to have supernatural capabilities, and she went into a trance and wrote down latitudes and longitudes. And we set our satellite over the latitude and longitude, and the plane was right there.
Wow.
And he said, with skepticism, he said, how did your mind process that? He goes, with skepticism, whether it was a gross coincidence or I don't know, but that was one thing I could never explain. And that's President Carter.
Right. He would lean more on the faith side
Right.
than the psychic side. for sure.
Right.
Yeah. So I think for me, my takeaway is that I personally think that it's just like anything else. If you believe in any psychic abilities, then you're going to believe in the fact that you can do, it's all the same to me. It's all working with energy. It's all getting insight. Some people are better at different kinds of modalities. We work on that in class, and they just are. But I don't see it hard to believe at all. What I do believe that can end up being a problem is when people decide, when they I started asking, then why doesn't it work for the police? Why wouldn't, since I do believe, clearly, we believe in psychic phenomenon, we believe in intuitive messages, whatever you want to call it, I started thinking today, then why is it that some are not more accurate so that there can be credibility to this, since we have a lot of good results with our readers, right? I mean, Roger, we have good results. We have clients who will say and vouch for us as readers, and many of us in the store. So why then, on that level, has there not been more success? I think some of it is because you've got so many people who just call in, but I think it comes to ego. I think it comes to the fact that the person who is, do I think that positive results and psychics can be totally an ego and still give accurate messages? Yes, I do. I 100% do believe that. I think they can be what some people would call low vibration, and they're boozing it up before they go on to a show, and they're doing all this kind of stuff, and you can judge it all you want, but they still get very accurate information because it's who they're channeling it from.
Yeah.
Okay, but at some point, I think there must be something to the fact that when our ego gets in the way, and we want it to be, oh, I'm really good at this, I found a missing person. It needs to be, I think, because maybe that missing person, somehow it enters your consciousness and it comes to you in the most unlikely of times. And I have found that for me in a lot of cases. I don't mean cases, I just mean with a lot of clients. Sometimes when I get the best readings, it's when I am stepping out of the way the most. It's not ego. I am literally stepping out of the way, and I'm not attached to the outcome. And when people are super attached to the outcome of any type of reading, and they want to look like they're really good and they want to impress people, that's usually when you're not as good of a reader.
Yeah. I think, too, that there is more success with the psychics than they say.
I think you'd be right. They don't want to admit it.
That's my opinion. I think
Well,
to
it'd be
admit that,
kind of scary for them to admit
it's
that.
scary for a lot of people, right?
Well, and if you think about it, they already don't admit it, and they got 5,000 psychics calling and telling them, hey, I got this information. Imagine if they did admit it, how many people would be calling and telling them?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think there's ego that way, too, that they don't want to admit.
Good point. Yeah,
That
goes
they're-
both ways.
that they're using them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There is a committee, and they have a conference coming up, and I thought, all I could think of was it would be so much fun to go with Roger and Michelle. But it's called the Committee of it used to be called the Committee of Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal. That's a lot. Now they're just called the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry. And what they do is they go around and they investigate different claims of paranormal, of psychics, of ghosts, of all kinds of stuff. And they try and debunk it and explain it. And I went on their website today, and there was this big thing. They have a conference coming up at the Flamingo Hotel in Vegas. I was like, how much fun would
That's fun.
When we go,
would that conference be to go to?
when we go.
And the people that would go, it would be so much fun.
We would
So-
be some characters, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? Before we get to readings, we'll have
No.
some time for readings tonight.
Let's do some readings.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I'm going to be reading tonight with the Bianco Nero Tarot by Marco Proieto. Really? I get all the ones, I never can pronounce the names. I butcher them, and I'm so sorry, Marco, that I can't say it. But this is a beautiful deck. It is for sale here at SoulTopia. And Laura, what are you reading with?
I am reading with the Crow Tarot, and it's created by MJ Cullinane. I believe that's how you pronounce it.
And
Yeah,
I will
it's a
say
beautiful deck.
that just won a Carta Award. I just saw it yesterday. That won, like, I don't know if it won Best Illustration for 2019. That did, the Carta Awards for Tarot and Oracle cards. And so did Shot to Benabel when her Spirit Keepers deck won a whole bunch of stuff, too. What are you reading with, Roger?
I got a tough one here. Ann Stokes, Gothic Tarot.
Oh, you're going dark.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, as always, we will set the intention that these readings be for the highest and best good of anyone involved. We will just know that if you're asking for a reading, we're not going to sugarcoat it. It is on, it's recorded, you guys. So don't ask for a reading unless you want the reading. Okay, you can ask for a specific question or for a general reading. And we're going to do what we call a lightning round, where we each will pull one card,
Why are you looking at me like that?
because you always pull like 2,
I'm
3,
gonna pull 4 this time.
4,
Look at me
Celtic
like that.
Cross. Okay, so, and we'll do readings for you guys if there's anybody who wants one.
Taylor Rena, general reading.
Hi, Taylor Rena, general reading.
Oh my God, I like shuffle these cards.
All right.
They're all,
They're brand new.
yeah. Actually, I've read with them a couple times.
Okay, Taylor Rena. I like that.
I like how you spread them out.
That's
You're such a
right.
professional.
It's a
I'm
good
sorry
thing.
I woke you
Well, you
up.
don't really have space.
He's just in my
Loki's.
lap.
Oh,
I
Loki's.
tried.
All right, so we're down one card for Taylorina for a general reading, and this is a lightning reading starting with me, I guess. Everybody draw a card. So you're in between. It's not like you're in between. You're trying to balance two things right now that you're not sure. It's the Two of Pentacles, but and it's seeming very obvious to me. You're trying to balance two things in your life right now. I'm not sure if it's job. It could be job and home life, which is also job a lot of times. Okay, we work from home with a lot of our things we do there. But you're balancing them, and you are, I'm going to tell you, Taylorina, it feels like you're getting off balance with it. So I need you to get a little more grounded, step into, for a little while, step into one role a little bit more so that you can get your bearings straight, and then slowly add the other role back in so you don't feel so off kilter.
Okay. So Taylor, I got the sun for you. I don't know where we can see it.
Yeah.
Right there. The sun for you is a really beautiful picture. I think especially this fall is going to be a real time of change and recognition for you. You have done a lot of hard work. You've worked, like a horse. You worked like crazy, and I believe that this is going to be a time where you are acknowledged and you gain respect and recognition that you desire. I feel like you really need that and you really want that. So I believe in the fall that you'll start seeing the fruits of your labor.
What'd you get, Roger?
So I got the Nine of Cups, and with the Nine of Cups, kind of back to what Michelle, you were saying. You get a lot of choices, things like that coming up, but I think it's a lot of choices up there. You need to really start focusing in on some things and really, really pick one thing to focus in on and really follow that part of it.
But I love that sun and that Nine of Cups. I mean, boy, those are good cards. Those are cards about great success and manifestation. So you do have options, but maybe balance yourself more into one for a little. Lean into one a little bit more than the other, and then the others will come. Boy, that sun and that Nine of Cups together, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
All right, Nellie, general reading.
All right. And again, this will be for the highest and best good of Nellie. We ask that none of our ego comes into this, only what we handle and the information we receive from Nellie.
I'm such a hard time shuffling my cards. Okay.
You said general, right? Okay. Good?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm drawing twos tonight. Tonight, I drew my favorite card, which is the Two of Swords for you, Nellie. The Two of Swords is, to me, a beautiful card where, but it's not always an easy card. It's a card where, for one thing, the first thing I notice is her heart is crossed. She's sitting on a very difficult bench with the water behind her. She's facing us, and all the beautiful ocean is behind her. But she has her arms crossed at her chest as though she's closing herself off to some things. She doesn't want to be hurt anymore. She's very guarded in her heart space. And then she has these swords and a blindfold on. The blindfold is very telling for me. I feel like for you that it's okay. It's not like you're at a stalemate. It's okay for you for a little while to leave the blindfold on. I don't think you're blinded by the situation. I think you're just saying, I need a little break from it before I rip the blindfold off and deal with those heart matters and things that I don't really want to deal with yet. I'm going to tell you one other thing that I'm picking up. I'm picking up that, to be really candid with you guys on the air, I'm not a doctor, but I am picking up that there is something health-wise with one of your loved ones that you keep sensing and knowing, because you have a great sense of knowingness and psychic ability to you, and you are going to at some point need to take the blindfold off and deal with that situation. because it needs to be dealt with. The person needs to go to the doctor.
So I got 2 of Cups, and it's incredible that you said a medical situation, because I was just going to say, I feel like there's been a situation that has been very painful to you, very hurtful in your heart, but things are going to be coming back together for you soon. I also felt like there was some sort of medical issue at the heart of this, but it's been a very rocky, very, very rocky road for you. But I feel like this is a new beginning. Things are going to start coming together for you again. And I would be cautious of health and medical issues. I see that too. And if you want to look at the card, you can see what I'm seeing.
And it's interesting, they're both 2s.
Right.
So we've got 2s, have to do with choices sometimes. It's duality also, but I'm getting choices. It's going to be up to you when you decide to deal with that. It seems like you've been putting it off. I'm not sure if it's about you, though. It feels like it may be a family member. I could be all on that. Or did you get it was about her or about someone else?
I got it was about somebody else.
Okay, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Okay, Roger?
And I got the High Priestess. So,
Did you get it in reverse?
I don't know which way the camera is, so I don't know if these are showing.
It's a little off, so you can just hold them up, actually.
Okay.
Really quick when you
Can
do
you
it.
hold them up? Or each person, or should Laura hold them? Okay.
yeah, so I got this, the High Priestess. What I got from this, well, I know Nelly, so it's a little cheating, I think. But
It's not cheating.
Nelly, I think what you need to do is actually, knowing what they both said, is for you to take a step back and really meditate on this and really look into your own perspective of what you need to do and what you need to follow up with and help with this person that you're what they're talking about. Okay.
I'm going to comment on what Roger said. I think we can read for anybody. I don't think that when you know them, it's cheating at all.
Yeah.
I think you can even read for yourself if you've got it your own way.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just.
But I don't know of any medical issues, so that did come up intuitively.
Well, I don't either.
Yeah.
But she's still a good reader.
She's a high priestess, so yeah,
Yeah.
that card is
So
her.
it's like,
All right.
Carla, general reading.
Miss Carla. I don't take the time to shuffle quite as much as I might when we have more time. You want to go, Laura?
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, Carla. The Queen of Cups. I really feel like your family looks to you. You're the glue that holds your family together. I feel like, too, you might have been suffering from a little bit of depression, but know that there's a lot of love and support around you. You have a lot of people who really love and really care about you, and who constantly look towards your well-being and your welfare. And I do feel like lately you've been a little ungrounded and a little depressed. I do see this passing. I see it waning, as opposed to getting bigger. So know that will pass very soon. But your heart is full of love. You are the glue that really holds your family together.
Do you want me to go? Oh, sure.
go ahead.
Okay, so I have Justice, and I love this depiction because she really looks like a badass, and she is ready for battle. She's got your typical sword and the scales, as above, so below. But what I'm getting for you is that there is going to be some sort of legal matter that will come up. I'm not sure how it feels not like you're getting sued, but there's something where you're going to have to kind of go to battle like being Athena and pick when to be strategic and when to go hard, because I feel like there will be something that you're having to fight for to maintain your rights in matter. And I feel like it will come out favorable, but you're going to have to really put on your battle clothes and be, like I said, Athena in it. And Al is her totem, so use the wisdom of Al for help with that.
So I got the Three of Pentacles.
With that card.
It's kind of a cool card. It's actually kind of tough to, because it's three skulls right down the row. I think with that is, what is weird is like almost popped in my head when I looked at that card. Carla was actually more of a spiritual journey, that you need to start focusing a little bit more on that spiritual side of things, almost getting back into yourself, as a journey that you're going to begin, maybe like a healing type, spiritual type journey.
Okay. Okay.
We're
and
out of
so
time?
Every time we say that, don't we? It goes by.
She's over there pointing at the clock and throwing.
Did they
It's
say-
like she's
did
throwing
they say
gang
which
signs or
is-
some
which,
shit.
She wants the red goldstone.
She wants the. Has she named him yet? What's your name, Levi? Ted. She would read about Ted Bundy. Name him Ted. Andy Ted. Ted Andy.
Ted Andy.
Ted Andy. Ted Andy.
Ted Andy.
Ted.
would name him Ted.
All right.
I
you
go
guys.
dark, so.
Well, there's some Teds that are nice.
Yeah, there are. I'm sure.
Really?
Just not ones you drive
Not one that I know about.
Volkswagen Bugs or something like that.
Right.
All right, you guys. Well, Laura, thanks for being
Thanks
on.
for having me.
Always, you're so much fun. That's it for this week. You can listen to SoulWhat on Spotify, the iHeart Radio app, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and of course by watching live on YouTube at MichelleSoulTopia and on Facebook at SoulWhat. Thank you for listening to SoulWhat, where we discuss and you decide what is important for your soul.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.